What's the best way to cope when naming a current loss taps into deeper or older loss? How do we grieve both losses at the same time? And part of that is also like, how do I know when what I'm feeling is normal, or do I need like more serious help? I
Mm.
think that's a good thing to think about.
Yeah, that's such a good question. A friend just reached out to me, and this is, um, yeah, so it's close to my heart. And she just said, "I want to know, like, how am I grieving properly?" She lost her mother during the pandemic, and so one of the things that we talk through is there, like, one of the things we talk about in grief work is kind of STIRBs. What are the short-term energy release behaviors that we're doing? What are the kind of distractions that we are are engaged in, and we need them. So anything from shopping to eating to scrolling online, whatever it is that we do, like, we need those STIRBs. And so, but the conversation we got into is, are do you feel like they are harmful? Like, have you? And so she was just very, very, very self-aware, and she's like, "I'm doing this, this, and this. I know that I'm doing them because I'm not dealing with my grief." So
Mm.
even just being able to, like, name, okay, so she was like, "Okay, yeah, you've answered that question for me. I'm not dealing with my grief because I'm doing these things instead." So that's a lot of what I look at, like, how are you? What are the things that you're distracting yourself with? And not, and like I said, not with no judgment. Like, it's okay, those are okay. We need those things. We cannot face loss and grief 24/7. Like,
Right.
our psyches just can't handle it. But when you begin to feel like those are self-destructive, that can be a real sign, like,
Mhm.
this is a little more complicated. Than And my loss is a little more compounded than I'm thinking, because I really am finding myself stuck in this pattern of behavior.
Mhm.
Um, but also and this is, I'm always saying, like, I'm like, I don't know why people pay me to talk about grief and, to be their grief counselor, because my whole thing is all about giving yourself permission to grieve, because
Mhm.
often we are so caught in and wanting to be productive, that
Mhm.
people come to me so much and they're like, how do I, like, I'm distracted by my grief and I just don't want to be, I need to be
Mhm.
productive at work, and I'm like, partly we don't have the morning rituals and the grief
Yeah.
rituals that we used to mark that this is a time of grief.
Mhm.
Um, and so part of it is not our grief, it's our society that
Mhm.
doesn't have good supports for grief.
Mhm.
So more than anything, just giving yourself permission to grieve. But also, and I think this is a Suzanne Stabile quote, grieving in real time, giving yourself the ability to grieve in real time as
Mhm.
much as possible is so important, because it is like, when we are not able to grieve in real time, it does get compounded by another loss that's down the line. And I see that really often. I had a support group once that everybody's loss was 6 to 9 years ago, because they had just never had the space to really talk about it and process it. And so, that I just think that partly, and this is my last little wrap up, I think, we grieve well. I mean, in order to grieve well, we have to live well. And that's looking at our support circles and the way that we take care of ourselves in every other way is a really important thing too.
Jennifer, you want to add anything real quick, or?
Oh no, that's so good. I mean, I think I don't, in psychology, we always talk about effective versus ineffective behaviors. So when you find yourself really caught up in behaviors that are not effective in achieving the wellness, the well-being, the connection, the health that you want, that's a big cue that you need to stop and think about, okay, what do I need to do to approach this in a more effective and healthy way? And Zena's right. I think some of it is that we're not given in our culture permission to grieve effectively, and so we have to make sure we're finding that for ourselves, and that we're very aware of the systems we have in place to help us move through that in ways that are healthy. And that means that doesn't mean they don't hurt, right? Because your grief is painful and loss is painful. And so being able to acknowledge that, live in it effectively, and that's hard to know sometimes. And so sometimes you may just want to reach out and get support to help you think through, am I doing what I need to do here? Because I lost my dad to cancer a few years ago, and it's devastating to lose someone you love like that. It is. And every healthy thing you do is still going to be devastating. And so kind of being able to understand that it's okay for me to be in that place at certain points, I think is also really important.
Yeah. So we are just humans, we're just mortals. We're not superheroes, but we're human beings together. And I think just admitting that. Yeah. Thank you guys so much. What a great conversation. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Yeah, look up Jennifer and Zena both. Jennifer has a book that she's written. What's your book called, Jennifer?
Well, I have one that just came out, but it's a teacher workbook. It's about media messages. So helping your children understand media messages. And then I have one about sexualized media in children as well.
And you have a website, right, Jennifer, where they can go to your website. And Zena also has a website. And Zena's got really great stuff that she's on her website available. So thank you both so much. God bless you. And God bless 1128 for this good work. Thank you. Great to be with you both.